Right. So in today's session, we are going to talk about what we call the cascading style sheets, which is a language we will use to define what we call the presentation, the outlook of this. When we say outlook of this, when we how a particular web document is visually presented in a screen or maybe in print. You might have noticed like sometimes when you print the web pages, it's slightly different from what is you know see on the screen. At the same time, you might also notice that when you open up a website in different screens, like in your desktop, your tablet, and the mobile, it looks different, right? So basically, by using a cascading style sheet, so in short, we say CSS, we can define how exactly you want to present something. We normally call, you can define the type and how it lay out. And comparatively, instead of embedding this together with the HTML, separated this from the structure which we have discussed in last couple of sessions. It's easy to maintain, and then once you define the style, then you can actually reuse, right? So it's more, we can say CSS is easier to maintain, reuse, and accessible, right? Although we have to spend a little bit of amount of time defining the sheets, and it's easier, right? And then there are like different types of style sheets are available. We are going to discuss. We have already, discussed how we can provide the styles together with attributes. We call inline styles, but we may have to, separate this from the HTML so that we can easily work on. And that's what we are aiming in today's session. So with that said, let's look at the syntax, how we should structure. So ideally, remember, there are a few things you have to note if you're a beginner for this particular, for CSS. First of all, you have to have you are defining set of what we call the rules. These are like, in this particular case, in an example, we are actually defining set of rules how a paragraph should look like, right? So ideally, we have something called a selector. Whatever the tag that you want to select, we will normally say it's a selector, and then you have a declaration block, right? You start with the curly brackets, and then within that, usually we present the values in a fashion with properties and the values. So we already know now this. In this particular graphic, you will notice we have a select H1. We are going to change how the H1 is appear. So we are changing the property color into blue, which means whatever the text will appear in a blue color with the font size of 12 pixels. PX stands for pixels, right? So ideally, there are few selectors are there. So therefore, we have to use different selectors, right? So we are going to discuss these ideas later on. You can use IDs, classes, right? So how we are going to use, we are going to discuss. The next thing is you can see under the selectors, we use different selectors for this one. For example, in this particular case, we select a particular element, in this case paragraph, by its name, right? So this is called element selector. And what we are doing here is a paragraph. We are going to align everything into center with the color red. Similarly, then we have ID selectors. This is like if you want to select uniquely. Normally, this is not recommended, but in some cases, this is if you want to give a very unique style, then um, you can use it. But recently, people recommend instead of using the IDs, they recommend use of classes, right? I'll come to that point. So, for example, we are using a unique ID selector here, and then we are selecting the text we align into center with the color of red. Right. The class selector, which is what nowadays quite popular when you want to apply. For example, you can use it for element together with a particular class, and then we define the class center here, which is we align into set with color red, right? But if you want to apply a specific element for the class, which we can use again with the same. So you can notice that this is possible, right? So we will discuss these things, ideas later on as well. Sometimes we can specify uh, one particular element for more than one class. For example, here you can notice we have P class, center and large. Basically, you are referring here to classes, center class as well as large class. Right. The next one is you can group selectors.
So
Now,
excuse me.
yeah.
Sir, P dot class means all paragraph at that class, sir?
Yes.
But we are not able to connect other thing that using that class called without P.
No, no. I mean, like, for example, uh, when you say, this is my understanding, we have to double check this one. Now, when you define a class, the class can be used by multiple elements, right?
Okay, sir.
Implies one. For example, in this particular case, we define a class center, which will center the text to center with color red. Okay. But when we say a P dot center, that means when you apply particularly the paragraph together with center. That's why I said this is normally we will call chaining, and that's particularly if you want to focus on a particular element together with the class.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, we will see. I mean, like we'll come to we'll put into practice and we'll discuss that again. Huh? Okay, right. So the point that I want to here is we can group selectors. For example, let's say that you apply the same thing for multiple selectors. You can notice here I'm applying the alignment for H1, H2, and also the paragraph. So simply, if you want to apply similar styles for the three, remember that the way we have used early is every element we put a style attribute. If you remember what we have done up to now, in this particular case, we will have separate, but instead of putting them separate, you can group them. So ideally, when you have like multiple values, you can group them. One advantage you will get by doing this is it reduces the repetition. At the same time, it reduces the file size as well. Remember, these the these commands we use as a separate text file, normally as a separate external style sheet, right? And then when you're putting into group, one is you reduce the repetition, and at the same time, its size reduce the file size as well. Right. Comments, ideally, there are comments that you are normally going to use. So we can use slash and asterisk, and you can end with asterisk and slash. So this is considered as a use of comment. Whenever you want to write or develop a CSS, sometimes you have to have your own notes. Maybe this could be a helpful comment for a anybody else who's going to develop your whatever you have developed. So therefore, I hope you have already learned about the importance of the documentation. Whenever possible, you should make your own comments. And sometimes we will use to just to ignore some part of the code as well, right? Right, now let's discuss how we can insert. And what I want to highlight is how we can put the styles here, right? So first of all, we'll discuss um, starting from the external one. External one means all our codes, the style codes, that means how exactly your each of these different tags appear in the document could be separate as a file. So ideally, you create a separate file with the CSS extension. So you can notice here, you can create a styles for body tag as well as H1. So we have set the background to light blue and with the header to navy, again blue color, and with the margin, some spacing. I'll come to this point again as well. In the box model, we'll discuss in detail how exactly you put these values, but for the time being, you're putting some spacing in the left side. So these are the two we have in here. So when you want to apply into any of your H document, right? Simply within the head, we can define it as a style sheet. So ideally, we will say a link. We refer the style sheet and we specify the type as CSS, and also we point out the CSS file. So in this particular case, I'm assuming that CSS file is also within the same folder. Right, now the second one is you can have it as a internal style sheets. Internal styles means you are not going to create a separate file, but you are going to include it in the same page. And when you're doing so, we are going to use style tag. So within the style tag, you can type whatever the style that you want to specify here. So you are going to define within the style element inside the head section again. Third one we have already observed. I hope you remember we discussed use of style attribute. We can define how in this particular case, the text should be appear in blue with the margin with the 30 pixels. Right. Now, remember that when you have multiple styles, you might be wonder how it actually affects. We call the cascading, right? So there are a few things we need to note. If we see the same selector, that means let's say you have paragraph. Ideally, we say the last one will be used, right? Okay, so you can notice here we have style sheets here, right? And then let's say we have color navy in the H1 in the external one, and then internal one we have orange. Ideally, what it means that whatever the last one will be used, right? So when the order of the cascading order, when there's more than one style specified in HTML, so usually this is the priority order. Usually it will use inline style, meaning like if you have specified anything within the element itself, then it will apply. That's a priority. Or then it goes with the external and internal style sheets, depending on how you have actually appeared it. Or else sometimes, different browsers slightly differently, visualize your content. So that means the browser is also have some styles already defined. So that is what is applied. Right. Maybe we could try something before we go into details. So shall we try creating a simple style sheets there? Okay. Right. Now we discussed three styles, three ways of styling text, right? So the first one we said external one. I will explain that. Then we have an internal style sheets, or then we can directly apply the style. So that we have already discussed, right? So if you want me to explain, so for example, here we have B, we have style, and then within this we can specify maybe a color, we can say red. So this is what we have discussed, the last time. So this is we call inline, meaning like with the within the element itself, right? The problem is, let's say every time when you have bold, if you want to do this is not going to work, right? For example, let me put here also we have Queen Elizabeth. So let me put another B here, Queen Elizabeth II, right? Right. So let me put /B again, right? And if you have inline, the problem is, you have to type it again here in the same place. So instead of that, so for example, let's say all the bold ones, if I want to specify as color is red, so easier way is we can put into the style code. So one way to do this is, as we have discussed, is first I will talk about internal CSS. So within the head, we can have style command. So within head, I can use style, right? And we can specify different styles here. So I told you like element style earlier. So with the element style, so what we can do is we can say, since we are thinking about the bold, I can say B and then curly bracket, and then within that we can say whatever the color. So for example, if I want to say color red, I can specify color red here, right? So with that said, now you might notice I will remove this style here from here as well, right? And ideally, all the bold ones should be, sorry, I missed the slash here. Was already what has happened, right? You can notice all my bold elements now color specified in red, right? Now, similar to this one, you can use elements, and also you can also use different, so let me say, let me put it this way. So this is internal one. So let's specify some more. Maybe I can use, center. These are called classes. So in classes, for example, I can put, right, what I will say center. So within that, what I'm trying to do, this is called a class. And what I'm trying to do here is whenever you use class center, we'll try to make it center, right? So I'm going to say, okay, text align, I will say center. So what happens if you want to apply this one? This is called a class. You have to use a class element. So let me use it here. So here we have h1. We'll say class center, right? And then when I refresh, you can see it applies this style. The text alignment is center. Let me try to add one more. Maybe I will apply it here. In the paragraph, we have two paragraphs, right? So I will put here P class is also, we will say, center, right? Have you observed that? Now I have defined the class for h1, it's entered, and I have two paragraphs. You can notice the second paragraph I applied the class head. Right. Are we clear up to this point? Okay, so let's look at how we can specify CSS command in the external file. So I have got a new notebook and a text file, and then I put some rules for the element B. I set the color to blue and save it as external.css. Right now, it's still not connected. Because of that, you don't see any color here, right? Now let me put in simply like this. I will say, okay, I will say like this. Let me say, so I'm going to type something. I'm linking my CSS here. It says link, and this is a style sheet. You can have type as well, but simply you can say external CSS. Now, as soon as I save this and refresh, you can notice that all the text, paragraph text, turn into blue color because I have set up the values here, right? It applied. Okay, there was a question on which one is faster, is it inline or external? I don't think there's a huge difference between for a small problem like this, but usually I think when you think about the real project, um, what happens is when you put inline, for example, there's no communication, no extra requests. So therefore, ideally, it should be inline, right? Because browser, it's available. But external one, then, there should be like, communication with the server to get the CSS file. But again, remember, um, once you actually receive the CSS, usually it will cached, right? So there might be a bit of a slow in maybe the first one, but I don't think there's a huge difference between the two, right? But remember that why we are using CSS, mainly because for the maintainability, separate the code from your structure of the code. So the best thing would be, think you should go for, whenever possible, you should go for external CSS. Right. I'm not, I don't see anyone is raising their hand, so I'm not really sure whether you have finished or not. So in the small um, uh, session, what I explain is how we apply CSS styles to a web page, HTML. I have explained how you may use uh, inside the HTML file itself, we call internal CSS. So that's what we have done here. Or we can use it as a separate file we call external CSS, and it's here, right? Now, I told you another point that I want to highlight here is overriding the use of this. So you can say here we have, paragraph we set in a blue, right? Now, let me say, if I put P here with a different color, what will happen? Yes, any guesses? So I'm going to say color is, let's say, green. Now, can you guess and tell me like what will happen now? So in the external sheet,
Paragraph color would be a green color.
exactly. So um, so you can notice here we have put paragraph color in green color and external one applied earlier and it's blue color. Let me save this and let's apply, right? So which one goes? So it depends, right? It depends on the order because we specify external, then we have internal, right? So if I switch this, what will happen? Let me switch this. Okay, let me remove first. Let me save, refresh, it's green. Let me put it here. It's blue, right? Remember? So remember the order is also something that you have to think of, right? I will switch back to the original, but I think you got the point, right? The order matters here, right? So remember that one thing I want to highlight whenever you want to have styles, make sure that you put it to as much as possible into external sheet. So that's easier to maintain because it's not tied with your page. right? But if you want to like customize particular page, let's say you have a set of pages, but you have to just customize one page, then you can go for page specific ones like internal or inline. So make a note of that. Right. One more thing I want to talk to you. Like we'll discuss this, but since we have now P and we have a center, and there was a question on what happens if you apply P dot center, right? Remember, there was a question. So let me explain that one. So I'm going to put this one and tell me what happens here. P dot center. Can anyone guess what happens here now? Yes. When you say P dot center, what happens? This will apply
Paragraph
paragraphs, yes, with
and class
exactly.
means center.
Yeah. So in our case, what will be the final look if I refresh this one? So here the paragraph color will be blue. Then once you come here, it becomes green. But if you have a paragraph with centers, then it should becomes purple, right? So can you notice this? So previous paragraph, if you go to code, you will notice it just P only. We have not applied anything. So there will be a color will be green. But here we say the class is center. Because of that, it will be in purple color. So if I want to add one more, right? So maybe I can particularly create another the tag with the class and show you it what affects, right? For example, div, if I remember the block element we discussed, and this will not you normally see lot. Let's say div element and let me say class set. So if I apply this one, I'm going to save it just to show you live, right? So it will be in black color because it's not paragraph, and center because we apply the class. So hope you got the idea, right? Now, I hope you understood what we have discussed up to the theory. Right, okay then. So in this part, we are going to discuss how we can, use colors here. Right? So we have background color. You can see colors applied to, two elements given here. Text color. So you can change the background color. You can change the text color. You can apply a border and then you can actually, add a color as well, right? So within H1, we say 2 pixels, solid. And then we said color is also, we said tomato, right? There are many ways that how you put the color values, and this is exactly what I want to discuss. And I will give you a link where we are not going to discuss all the possible color information, but I will give you a link for this one. Right, okay. Now, if you need colors, I have given you like one example where you can find color information. You can provide the color by name. Second one, you can provide the color with the hexadecimal value or hex in hex. We discussed basic idea behind this. Ideally, you use RGB value. The first two digits will show or represent the red color. Next, green, and then blue. Right? The amount of colors are there. And then the other day, I think I mentioned if you take a simple paint-like program, you can directly get this information as well, right? Let me share paint. Okay. So we can observe here, if you go to colors and if you click it here, you can get the values. Now, for example, if I click here, you can see it's red color, but you can notice, although we said red, there are a lot of variation in red as well, right? So you can see here. So if I put this into the top of this, that is pure red, maybe I can put blue 0, green 0, and this is exactly how we represent. So we have 255 red, 0 green, 0 blue, and this will represent the numbers. So the color information goes from ideally from 0 to 255 using 8 bits, because 8 bits you can represent 256 different colors. So 255 means it's the maximum, right? So you see it gives you the red color there. Similarly, if you say 255 here, and if you make it 0, then you will get green color. And you see the hex value is 00 FF00. The middle 2 will represent the green color, right? Similarly, if you take blue color, you can notice the last 2 digits. So if you put red and blue, we know we can get the secondary colors, right? So purple color, you will get it FF00FF. So if you want to get any color, you can just pick the color. It says light orange, and here are the values. You can name it light orange, or you can say, okay, this X value you can use when you represent the color information. Right. Going back to the slide again. So you can use different color names depending on your requirement. And sometimes you can find like matching colors as well. Normally we call what we call the color themes, right? We used to say color themes. If you need like more information of color values, I will give you a link for this one, right? You can try clicking this. Visit this page and you will get a lot more information of how you might represent various color information. We can use simply names or the hash hexadecimal values, but then there are like various ways that you can actually represent, right? So everything is listed here. Most of the browsers nowadays will support, most of these, color information. Right. So that's about the color information. So starting with the background, with the background color, we can specify the color of the element. We say background color light blue. We'll change it to the color to light blue. Or you can use an image to put into the background, right? So let me just quickly show you this. I'm going back to my file. So we have this. right? So I'm going to go to external. So as I told you about earlier, so we can specify the background color property. So for example, let's say you apply this to body tag. So we'll put it to body. We use background color and we say light blue, right? So let me save this. So I'm changing the external one. So you can see the background color becomes a blue color, right? The next one that we discussed is how you might put some image into the background. In this one, we say some image. You can try to put it to the background, right? So in that particular case, we have to use background image. So use background image, and then you specify whatever the file name, right? So for example, I can go to, right now I don't have any image with me. So I can go here, maybe I can draw a simple, shape, right? And then maybe I can fill with colors. Right, and I'm going to save this as a PNG file. I can put into okay, I already have some. So maybe I will say start to. Okay, I have some files. Sorry, I didn't notice. And we have clouds PNG. Right. Okay, so I'm going to do what? I'm going to go back to my code. And then I will say background image URL. This is star2.png. Right, let me save this. Hope it will work. Let me save this. Right, so you can notice that the image is actually repeated. I don't have, it's not very lengthy one. Otherwise, you will see usually the image repeated in both horizontally and vertically. And this will not be applied because image will be, override the color here, right? So we had clouds, right? Let me put clouds and see. Yes. Again, you don't see the image, but notice what I want to highlight here is it will actually repeat it, right? Both horizontally and vertically, right? Maybe I'll put a star. Just to see how. Okay, so this is good. So you can notice it's repeated both horizontally and vertically. Answer for Saimindu, yes, you can use. Right. But then again, you can change this. So for example, if you just use this, this will be repeated both vertically and horizontally. So if you want to like restrict, you can say background repeat, and you can say repeat X, which indicates that it should repeat only the X direction. So you can notice that in my case now I have changed that to repeating, but I will say okay, repeat only to X direction. Right. Next one. If you don't want to repeat, then you can say no repeat. It will just comes here, so you can see how we can put it, and then you can specify the position. Where do you have to put this, right? We can say different values, and we can say background attachment fix. So there are many properties are there. Maybe I will quickly show you couple. So repeat X I have explained. We can say no repeat. So if I do that, right, and if I save, right, it is there. Then we can position it if you want. Let me position it in the middle of this. We can say background and position. I can say, okay, center, center. I make a mistake here. Okay. Yes. So you can observe that you have a control over this. Again, you can refer the documentation, how you might, handle the backgrounds. Right. Now, although I have listed everything one after the other, in most of the time when you write a CSS, most of the time you can put everything into one single place, right? So, for example, when I say in previously, I put everything as a separate, but you can actually combine them. So you can notice here, when you want to specify the color of the background, the image, whether to repeat, right? And also the position that you want to specify, you can put everything in one single line like this. So in this particular case, we are going to say background. And then you specify the background color, the image, whether to repeat or not, and then the position. You can save it in the same line. Okay, next one. You can apply different types of borders. The borders can be applied into any, but in this particular case, it specify some borders around the paragraph, and these are the different styles you can apply, right? So you can see P dotted, and then we apply the border style dotted, and so on. So we can say then what the class that we need to apply for this one, right? So we can say border style none. Then ideally, when you apply the border, we specify the width of the four borders. So you can notice that here we can use different way to represent. So here we say border width and 5 pixels. So around the text, you will see the size of the border as 5 pixels. Actually, you can use other ways as well. So there are some predefined values like thin, medium, and thick. And you can, instead of just say 5 pixels, you can say medium. And this here is how it look like. The next one is, if you want to change the width around the border, that is also possible, right? So you can see here, you start with the top, you have 2 pixels, then you have 10 pixels, then 4 pixels, and then you have 20 pixels, right? You have top and then right and bottom and then left, right? The order is top, right, bottom, and the left. So you can specify the border style as well. Right. If you want to change the color of the border, you can use border color. Again, like in earlier, we can specify border color red, or you can use some hexadecimal values for this. And then if you want to change, so for example, here the borders are applied in all the 4 sides, the same border. But then again, you can change it. If you can use different styles for top, right, bottom, and left. So you can notice here we are applying the top one is dotted, the right one is solid, the bottom is dotted, and the left is solid, right? And then you can apply as well. Like what we have discussed in the background, borders also you can use shorthand properties. You can specify width, the style, and then the color, right? You can specify how it should look like, right? Okay, so maybe we could try one. So going back to the code again, let's apply one of the borders and then see. We have paragraphs, right? And then we have colors. So let's put up some styles here. So for example, I will say border width. I'm going to say 5 pixels. Right. So in this particular case, for the first paragraph, we apply the dotted one, the class dotted, and then we specify this, and border width 5 pixels, the border style dotted, and the print you can observe here. Particularly, we attach it to the paragraph. But then again, we have created another separate class we call rounded border. We specify the border is 5 pixels, solid in red color. And for the rounded border, we specify border radius as 15 pixels, and this is the outcome, right? So the application, what I have used is here we have applied the dotted one. Here we have applied actually two classes. I hope you remember. We are applying both center as well as rounded border. Okay, there's a good question asked Malisha, why you can't have in the same coding? Yes, you can have Malisha, but the problem is, let's say you want to develop another page with the same styles. What happens if you put this in the coding, you have to use it again. And let's say I want to change the background color of all my pages. Then you have to edit all the pages. So therefore, instead of we specifying the styles in every page, we will separate that. And that's the reason for why we are using style sheets as well. So we are separating out our presentation from our structure, right? So that you can consistently apply same style for all the pages in the website. So I hope you got idea about why we are doing this, but you can read about this, right? Okay, right. With that said, because right now we are just working on one page, but once you have defined this consistently, you can apply these styles to any pages in your website. It will be consistent, right? So with that said, let's move to the next set of slides. We discussed the backgrounds, we discussed the borders, right? Okay, then we have margins. Now, when we have setting up the elements, how much space you put around is very important and it matters as well. One is the aesthetic look and feel, and sometimes you want to arrange the content. So therefore, you have to specify the margin, right? So when you are specifying the margin, you can specify the top margin, right margin, bottom margin, and left margin, right? So what are the properties that you can set? You can usually you can use auto, meaning the browser can decide on the margin, or you can specify the margin in pixels, points, centimeters, or you can specify it as a percentage value, right? It could be inherited coming from one of the parent element as well. Right. So if you take the shorthand property for margin, you can notice the command. It says margin 25 pixels, 50, 75, and 100. You're specifying top, right, bottom, and left, right? You can have three. If you have three, what it means, you specify the top, and both right and left, you have 50. Bottom, you will have 75. If you have just two, right, we can specify what you have within this, right? Top and bottom, you will have 25, and then right and left, you have 50, right? Or you just say 25, then it will be all around, you will have 25, right? So when we use margin auto, what happens, it will be centered, right, in the container, and then the element will take up the specific ones. Now, for example, you can say a paragraph, and we can have within a div, right? So you can here we have div. We specify the width as 300 pixels. We specify auto margin with the border around this one, right? So in this particular case, you will see how it look like. And then you will have another one. We have two ones. So this is how you can specify everything that you need. But if you want to take margins from the previous one, this is how you can actually have them with div and the p within this one. So in this particular case, you can say we have a border around this div, and then we have paragraph, and within that one, and the left margin you can actually inherit from the previous one. So left margin, you can notice that it's 100 pixels. That will apply here as well. Right, now padding is the space around the element, the content within the border. Right, but before that, let me use a box model. Okay, right. I'll talk about first the box model, and then I'll come back. Right, we specified the margin earlier, right? And then we had the border. And so when you have a margin, you specify the space with the element around the border. But if you want to make it specify within the content, within inside the border, then you have to use what we call the padding, right? So this is understanding this will be very important. So you have a margin, you have a border, then you have padding, and then you have content, whatever the text you type, for example, right? So the padding is also you can change again, you can specify the top, right, bottom, and left, same way as the margins that we have discussed. Again, you can talk about how you put them, right? So that is also one thing that we need to understand how we put it, right? Maybe maybe we could try this one, right? So going back to our example, okay, couple of ideas that we need to discuss in here. So we have div element. We have created div element. Within that, we have a paragraph. This is div element with the class center, right? And then within this paragraph, we have applied a set of commands just to explain you how to apply the margin. So in that one, what we have discussed is you can apply the margin. In this particular case, we said margin left is 100 pixels. This is around the border. In to the left, we have 100 pixels. And then the paragraph will inherit this. So that means it will take the value from the div element, and this space would be like 100 pixels. Right. The next one is after the border and with the content, you can make as a spacing. So that's we do with the padding, and we put 4 values to specify top, right, bottom, and left values, and this is how it look like. So when you want to like nicely arrange elements, you have to work with the padding and put the spaces. Right. Any questions? So all the elements that we have discussed, you can notice you can consider them as boxes, like paragraph, headers, everything is, you can see it as boxes. So whatever you type will be the content, but around you can have padding, you can have borders, and then you can have, margins. So by adjusting this, you should be able to, place them nicely, and depending on your requirement. We'll discuss more in coming, sessions as well. So it's important first you understand how to make use of the box model. Just a simple example. So you can notice here we specify width of the div element, and then we specify border, the padding, and the margin, right? So assuming that you have understood, can you tell me what is the total width of the element? Yes. So now the question is, you have given 300 pixels. So when you say width 300, remember what is it? Is it everything, or is it just the content? What do you think when I say 300?
It's everything.
It's the content, right? No, it's content. Make a note of this. When I say width, it's the content. So this is 300. Whatever the content we have is 300. So then we have padding. So we have a spacing, right? So you have to have 25, 25 padding around this. So we have 300, then we have 25, 25. Then you have margin. So margin is also 25, 25. Sorry, border. Sorry, it's not margin, it's border. You have 25, 25. Then you have margin, right? 25, 25. So what is the total then? We have 300 plus 50 plus 50 plus 50. How much? So you will have 450 pixels, right? So the whole element should take about 450 pixels total space. Are we clear? Yes. Right. I think with that we can conclude for today's session. Right. Now, when we say width of whatever the element in this particular case is the content. So this will be 300. Maybe I will draw, right? So this part, let me take a different color. So this part will be 300, the content, right? Then after this, you have something called padding, right? So we have padding, we have 25. But padding will be in the both sides, right? So here also we have padding. So we have padding. Then after that we have border, right? This is the border. Border is also size 25. So this is also 25. This is also 20, right? Again 25. Then you have margin. Margin means after this also you have 25. After this also 25. So how much you have? 25, 25, 25. That is 75. Both sides 75. That means 150 plus 300. You should get 450 pixels.